Hello everyone, this is Genuine Polish, and in this video we are going to be doing the 50 duplicate 50 cycle challenge. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but if you're not familiar with it, we're starting the game off with 50 duplicates and we're going to see just how many of them we can have survive by the end of cycle 50. I saw this challenge originally on Luma Plays, but I think the first creator to do this challenge was Echo Ridge Gaming, so shout out to both of them. I know I'm a smaller channel than them, but we can still send love their way, so go check them out if you haven't seen them. So first things first, we're going to pick our duplicates. I pretty much picked the same 3 duplicates that I always picked: a researcher, a farmer, and a digger. I like to have the highest seed chance possible with the farmer, fast researching, and then I always like to have someone who can dig me out some tunnels right away. So we get into the game and spawn our 50 duplicates, and then immediately pause it so that way we can look for caverns with oxygen in it. I figured the #1 priority first thing was going to be finding oxygen, so that way I could keep my people alive long enough to build some means of oxygen production. So with oxygen as our first goal, I set out trying to give every duplicate a task. It's kind of hard to give 50 duplicates something to do right at the beginning of the game, so everyone was pretty much digging for the first bit. I decided to get a research station running pretty much first thing, because if there's one thing we have a lot of, it's manpower. So I wanted people on manual generators and at research stations helping us progress right off the bat. I decided to build some oxygen diffusers, and doing some quick math, I decided I needed about 10 to supply my population. So I built a lot of manual generators and a lot of little battery banks. Right at the beginning of the game, I accidentally flooded my base while trying to get access to water, but because we have so many hands available, it wasn't that difficult to mop it up, and now we had water available even before we had a pitcher pump, so that worked out. I quickly sent all the duplicates into every cavern that had any amount of oxygen or food. I figured both of those were going to be a huge priority, and I just wanted to get access to those as soon as possible. I selected food for the first research because I knew with 50 hungry mouths we were going to deplete our food reserves really fast, so I knew we needed to get some planter boxes up and running. Next, we started mining all the copper and algae that was available. I figured with the oxygen diffusers running constantly and our need for electricity, these were going to be the 2 most important resources after water. Right off the bat, I decided to give my duplicates bed. Really, the cost is pretty insignificant, and I didn't want to risk duplicates passing out in dangerous spots or being so stressed that their overstress reaction caused them to break critical systems and kill our entire colony. So I figured that was a pretty high priority. Now that we researched the first tier in the food tree, I decided to throw up as many planter boxes as I could. I usually like to wait for farm tiles, but I don't think we can afford that time, so I went ahead and put as many down as I could and filled them with as many seeds as I could pull out of the ground. Now I wanted to make sure the duplicates had as much access to water as physically possible, because I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to grow food fast enough, and I wanted them to have the option of micro mushers to make mush bars in case they really needed to. And it turns out we actually needed to lean on those micro mushers a lot more than I anticipated in this playthrough, so it's a good thing we did. I decided that the best way to control the duplicates was going to be by placing them on different schedules, so I split them up by thirds and put them on different schedules, so that way I wasn't losing 50,000 calories all in one go, and there wasn't a line of 20 duplicates outside the bathrooms trying to get in. This let me skate by with just 6 bathrooms for the entirety of this playthrough, and it really helped make sure there was a constant flow of work. At the end of cycle 1, things were looking pretty good. We had actually built a pretty sizable base, and no one was starving and no one was suffocating, so things were going pretty decent. At the beginning of cycle 2, I decided to build algae terrariums right off the bat, so that way we could recycle that used carbon dioxide and we weren't going to risk overpressuring our base and flooding it with too much carbon dioxide. I made sure that all the algae terrariums were directly under light. This way they were working at maximum efficiency. Now normally that 10 extra grams of oxygen you get per second from them is not a huge amount of oxygen, but because we have 50 duplicates all breathing at the same time, I decided we really wanted to try and maximize that efficiency. Next, after watching my food rapidly decline, I decided that I really needed to get some micro mushers up and running. I honestly forgot how little seeds there are available at the beginning of the game, so I really needed to get these machines running. I had to hunt some hatches just for that extra food at the beginning of the game, but I wanted to make sure that we still had some population so that way we could keep them as an emergency food source. I decided to build rooms. I figured this was actually going to be pretty important to have enough morale to where the duplicates could get extra skills. Otherwise I would have essentially 50 useless duplicates running around the base banging their head on walls and doing nothing useful, which is not going to be good for this playthrough. As we got more seeds, I slowly expanded the farm, and while I was looking for the teleporter, I noticed that this teleporter transporter was broken. It wasn't showing up, so I was kind of concerned that the teleporter sender for the duplicates was going to be like that too. and I really hoped we didn't get a broken game seed because I was worried that I might have to use the second planet as an emergency backup in case this planet quickly becomes inhospitable. Then I started building some batteries and generators to increase our power production and started heading towards the surface. I had quite a lot of excess coal lying around, so I decided to build a coal generator next to the algae terrariums to give them a little extra carbon dioxide and the rest of the base a little bit of extra power. I wasn't sure how much heat this was going to produce because quite frankly I don't think I ever build coal generators. My need for electricity is never so dire at the beginning of the game that I will have a need to produce a coal generator, honestly. Surprisingly, on cycle 6, one of our duplicates was so happy that they had an overjoyed response. I wasn't expecting this at all, but they were just there running around the base as happy as can be. A quick checkup on our microbe mushers and everything seemed to be working fine. I started converting the planter boxes into farm tiles just because of my OCD. And at cycle 6, we got our first duplicate skill. Naturally, the researchers get their skills first. Usually in a normal game, I will always grab a duplicate on the first printing cycle, so that way I can instantly give them extra hard digging and they can help dig for those next 3 cycles before our actual digger gets the skill. And then if it doesn't correspond with their interest, I'll just skill scrub them later. But yeah, I honestly forgot just how long it takes for the first duplicate to get a skill. At the end of cycle 6, we already had all of our barracks set up, a great hall, and a bathroom. All these things were really going to help with morale, so that way our duplicates could get the skills they need. And our expedition to the surface found us this cold subsurface biome. This was going to be a critical part in cooling our base. I wasn't really sure how much heat 50 duplicates was going to produce, but I was kind of worried it was going to be enough to kill some of our plants. So I just wanted to make sure that we had some cooling available in case we needed it. Because we had 3 research stations and 4 researchers, we were just tearing through the first tier of the research tree, so I just went ahead and grabbed all of the first tier researches that I could. I noticed our algae was rapidly depleting, so I went ahead and built a slime distiller and started digging into this slime mold so that way we get some more algae, polluted water, and slime. All these things were going to be really helpful in producing oxygen for the base. With our power system close to full capacity, we were producing like 3 times the amount of electricity we were before. This let me get rid of all the arbitrary batteries that were stuck in the middle of the base taking up space. There was a couple of times before cycle 20 where I had to set yellow alert and have people start frantically digging for buried objects. Luckily, we were able to find enough muck root to keep us going, and we found some extra mealwood seeds while we were at it, so it was a win-win. When I got access to grub fruit, I went ahead and moved them to my farms and moved a bunch of speedles up there. I wasn't sure if we were going to deplete our dirt supply. I thought it was pretty unlikely, but just to be safe, I wanted to have a good supply of a backup food source. Watching my water reservoir deplete in real time made me realize I probably needed to connect some other water reservoirs to this one. I wasn't really sure if we were going to get access to later stage buildings in this playthrough, but I decided to build a rock crusher just in case, so that way we could get access to better wires and automation wires in case we needed them in builds. I noticed that we weren't getting as many mealwood seeds as I would like from the farms, so I decided to set a higher priority for all the people with some amount of farming skill, so that way we could increase the seed drop chance and reduce our reliance on microbe mushers. Now that we had our slime distiller set up, I decided to build a water sieve and start collecting some of the polluted water in this biome. I noticed the center of our base temperature was actually rising pretty fast, so we really needed to get that radiator built and circulating cool air fast. We got another set of skills for our researchers. This was going to unlock the next part of the research tree. I wasn't sure how far down it we were going to get, but at least we have access to it. We got another printing pod, and again, it was pretty much nothing very useful. Most of the prints this playthrough were pretty uneventful. After 15 cycles, I finally found the duplicates that were causing all the other duplicates to be dead tired because of their snoring. I separated them, and besides that, our farms are pretty much up and running. We had over 120 plants, and while that's not enough on its own, we had the micro mushers, and we were converting all of the meal lice into lice loaves, which, even though it cost a little bit of water, gave us a significant amount of extra food. While I was trying to dig out the radiator, this glitch happened where it selects half the map to be dug up. I don't know why this happens. If anyone knows, you can let me know, but I hate when this happens because I will always cancel digs that I want to dig, or sometimes I'll dig up plants, like I did in this scenario. I ended up digging like 10 plants up, and I had to replant them when I finally realized that I dug them up. We had a pretty good amount of hatches that were just stored for an emergency food reserve, and because we had so many, they were actually finally laying eggs, and we built an incubator to help increase their production. It was so cold in this biome that the carbon dioxide in the vents was instantly turning into liquid, but that was okay because we didn't really want carbon dioxide in the system to begin with, and the cost of repairing the pipes was pretty insignificant. I wasn't really happy with the oxygen distribution, so I built some more oxygen diffusers and moved some around so that way they would push the carbon dioxide more towards the center of the base and towards the algae terrariums. With 7 manual generators running, our power production was through the roof, but because of our huge power drain, there wasn't really a need to build any more batteries because we could barely store any of our excess electricity. I noticed that a lot of duplicants had pretty low morale, and it's because they weren't able to sit down in the Great Hall and eat. So I decided to expand it so everyone would have a seat. I decided to unearth this uranium boulder so that way we had access to uranium for research in case we wanted it. This biome was so hot though that I needed to build an insulated tile layer surrounding it so that way the heat wasn't transferring into my base, close to where my plants were growing. And then back to the slime biome, I started converging all the pools of polluted water into one so that way we could pump it through the sieve and get a good supply of fresh water. I also realized that I'd been draining my water tank down into another reservoir that I was pumping from because pneumatic doors don't stop water. I don't know how I forgot that, but I had to plug that up pretty quick. I noticed one of our duplicants had a stress of 91, so I immediately built some massage tables. There was just too many duplicants running around for some of them to be overstressed. I wouldn't be able to keep track of all of them and watch what they break, so I decided to build a massage table. Then I noticed the area around our manual generators was heating up pretty fast, so I added an extra radiant pipe loop to help cool it down. So, on cycle 32, something absolutely horrible, something horrific happened. While I was recording me building the hospital, I noticed something popped up in the corner of my screen, suffocating. Now this happens all the time, especially with long tunnels where the duplicant runs out of oxygen then has to run back. So I found the duplicant and saw that they had access to the surface. So I thought, okay, they have calculated the distance that they can go from oxygen to return safely. So I don't have to worry about it. I continued on building, and then all of a sudden, I noticed duplicant has died in the corner. This was horrible. I don't know what killed her. Looking at where she was, there was nothing that would have stopped her from being able to get back to the surface. I have a suspicion that there was an oxygen bubble on the far side of the tunnel, and then another duplicant recovered oxygen in that bubble and depleted it while she was running towards it, so she had to backtrack, and that killed her. I'm unsure, but this was just an unfortunate mistake. It wasn't due to a deficient of oxygen or food or anything like that, and so it's really upsetting to see that this is how my duplicant died. But it happened. I let all the duplicants mourn while I myself grieved. It was just a horrible thing. I decided to build the next research station so that way we could have access to solar panels and glass just in case we needed it. I still tried to get as much water as I could into my main water reservoir just in case some disaster happened and we had to rely solely on microbe mushers for the rest of this game. With the area cleared out around the radiator, I decided to collect all the ice and use this sophisticated system to deliver it to my water reservoir at the bottom of my base just to help add a little extra cooling. With our water reservoir being at risk of overflowing, I decided to extend the bottom just a little bit just to increase our capacity to hold water. I had my research station built for quite a while, but no one was delivering uranium to this radiation lamp, so I needed to see what was going on. I didn't realize that it needs to be mounted on a wall, so every time they were opening the manual airlock, it kept canceling the machine, and they kept just dropping the uranium where they were at. So I had to refix that. I started targeting some iron. I wasn't sure if we were going to get access to steel or any building that needed steel, but I just thought it'd be useful to have it just in case we needed it. So now at cycle 44, I tried to get to the surface, but with little progress being made, I decided that it was probably unlikely that I'd do it. Looking at our base, we had enough food and energy production and oxygen production honestly to probably make it towards the end of this. And finally, at cycle 46, I found the teleporter. Having discovered the teleporter, I decided immediately to make my way over to it. So I built a water lock, or my version of a water lock, because for whatever reason, every water lock I've tried to build recently just keeps breaking. Maybe I just need to revisit a super basic tutorial just to make sure I'm not doing something wrong. Maybe they changed it a little bit in a patch or something and I'm just not doing it correctly. I don't know. I never thought I'd forget how to build a water lock, but the amount of times I've failed recently suggest maybe I have. So at cycle 49 we got our last printing pod, and again, nothing too terribly useful. With our duplicant having it made it through the teleporter, we can see he's enjoying the fresh air and the isolation on the other planet. So with the duplicant defrosting his friend, we arrived at cycle 50 with 50 duplicants. Unfortunately, one died due to bad pathfinding and a little bit of negligence on my part. I'm so upset that happened. I'm sorry guys, it could have been a perfect run. But besides all that, I still thought this was pretty fun. I like the really quick pace of it, and honestly our base is set up well enough to where I could split the colony in half basically and send one half to the other planet and probably continue this like a normal game. Not that I would though, because I have so many other games up and running. So with all that being said, shout out to Luma Plays and Echo Ridge Gaming. Go check them out if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps support my channel, and I'll see you next time guys.